thanks very much everyone for kind of joining. Bit of background, I'm Jonathan Gaunt. I kind of say I've got two purposes in kind of in business life. One, I'm the founder of Sockets, and I also run my own accounting practice. And for me, it's kind of like the perfect kind of scenario because I get to do experiments in FD Works, and then I get the opportunity of using Socket to help scale some of those. Um, I probably shouldn't say this, but we are looking at creating a community for Socket. So watch the space. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, it'd be great if you can connect on LinkedIn and I can keep you updated about that. And also head to usesocket.com and sign up to our newsletter. So yeah, as I say, probably shouldn't be saying about a community, but we are looking to do that very, very soon. Simon and Amy have joined. They're going to be in the background to help answer any kind of questions. So as we go through, if you've got any questions, then please shout. We're also recording this session today, and we will be sending some additional information, kind of stuff we've put together. Hopefully tomorrow that will land in your inboxes. I can see we've got a couple of questions already. Oh, it's just a hello from Firefly. So yeah, hi Firefly. Perfect. So let's dive in and let's see what we're going to cover. So I guess the bit I want to start off with is almost like MTD for me isn't about a technology challenge. There will be tools out there that will help us to file those. I think it's more about the softer elements. So how do we price? How do we package what we do? How do we deal with like the changing kind of scope? And does it work for you? And I think that for me is the key thing. In this first phase, we've got about 800,000 businesses or kind of individuals that are going to be impacted. About 75% of those have already got an accountant or bookkeeper that's working with them. And so for me, this is the whole thing around you stepping into this and it being the right thing from a confidence point of view. And I guess the other thing here is this is also a way of thinking. So this is how I think about the scope of works in my own practice. And this is how we try to look at pricing with our clients. So again, as we go through it, we're trying to give you a methodology that you can use. And I would say that as accountants and bookkeepers, we're probably in the most fortunate position that we can almost like dog food. We can try things out on our own businesses and then we can start to use them with our clients and we can get paid for it. So yeah, absolutely think we're in the best situation out there. Here's agenda in terms of what we're going to kind of cover. So there's a little bit of theory here, but then I'm also going to kind of jump in and we've got some kind of practical tools that you can kind of play around with. And it's as much that thought process. But as I say, if you've got any questions, then shout as we go through. And if they're relevant, I'll try and answer them there and then. If not, we'll kind of cover them at the end. Or if we can't answer it, we'll come back to you with an answer. But yeah, excited to kind of take you through what we've prepared today. So it wouldn't be a webinar without a bit of a sales pitch. So what I'd say is if you're using a spreadsheet, you're using Go Proposal, or you're using Ignition, you should really take a look at Socket. What have we done? We're taking a pricing menu that gives you that consistency so anybody across the business can price. We've got a leads module so you can capture that very earliest conversation, turn it into a proposal. The letter of engagement is magically done for you. And then we get into this element of workflow. So how do we connect things through to the practice management tools you're using, tools like Zama, And this is an area where I've been kind of playing around quite a bit in terms of what can we do to make life just easier and easier for you. And then we get back to billing management. And I guess a bit like people say, a dog's not just for Christmas. A proposal's not just at the start of the relationship. So for me, that whole kind of proposal is something you should be doing over and over again. If you want to find out more, head to usocket.com and we can do a demo from there. But what I'd say to our existing users, tell your friends about us. And what I'd also say as well is we're actively developing. So again, as we go through, there's a few things that we're adding, but what we want to do is we always want to hear from you in terms of how can we make your life easier. So what's the market saying about MTD? It's the bit that stands out is that first line, a 30 to 40% increase in the level of workload, but people are only putting prices up by 10 to 15%. For me, that doesn't make sense. And then there's also this whole kind of bit around pricing. And we see it all too often of people asking in forums, what are you charging for such and such? And for me, the key thing here is for you to work out your price. It's not about what someone else is charging. It's about what you want to charge for it. And for me, this is about, there's a big, when you look at the pricing, this is about making sure that it works for you and it also works for the client. And it's not just kind of that bit of, oh, it's only a quarterly submission. There's an awful lot of work that goes into that kind of submission. So it's a case of kind of like review, reconcile. So again, let's really understand what is involved. And then from that, we can then price for it effectively. So what do you need in order to price effectively? I guess the key thing to start thinking about, you need to start looking at this from different kind of perspectives. So almost from a client perspective, what are they paying for at the moment? What are they prepared to pay? Is it 1%? Is it 2%? There's lots of numbers kind of banded around about people like larger businesses spending 5% plus on it. I just can't see that that's going to happen in this place. So for me, it's almost like that bit of with this first kind of group, if they've got 85,000 in terms of revenue or those kind of income streams, what is it that they can afford to kind of pay? Is it 1%? Is it 2%? As you start to kind of push things across to the right, that's really the bit where you need to be able to kind of demonstrate that you're adding value. And I think the key bit here is, are we having conversations with our clients around understanding what it is that they value? Is it peace of mind? Is it time back? There's a real challenge here in terms of whether we can add additional value around better tax kind of conversations, because for a lot of you, these are going to be your existing clients that you've perhaps already been having some of those kind of conversations with. But first of all, we've got to look at it from the client's perspective of what are they prepared to pay. The next thing then is to start looking at what's the scope. So it's not just the quarterly submission. You've got to be able to kind of record all of that income and costs within the kind of the bookkeeping space or the digital record keeping. And it's going to be on a cumulative kind of basis. So it builds up over the year. And it's that whole kind of bit of do your clients know what they need to do? And is it very, very clear in terms of which are the elements that you're going to be doing and what is it that the client's going to be doing? And I think this is also the bit around setting the expectations. So if you're going to do the bookkeeping, have you made it very, very clear what you expect in terms of kind of getting the paperwork to do it? if you're starting off with the quarterly submissions and the client's doing the bookkeeping, what is it that you're going to do if the quality's not there? Or are you literally going to take the information, submit it? And so this is really, really important for you to start thinking about what are the elements that you want to support for. And I guess there's a big question here of, do you have the capacity to be able to do it? So a couple of things to think about. What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And I guess there's a real challenge here of there's perhaps some elements of if you're going to do this and it's going to consume some capacity within your practice, what is it that you're giving up? And so, yeah, I'd say be a little bit selfish in this space. We then get onto the bit of what drives complexity. So it's not just a simple, this is their turnover, therefore this is the price. Some of the things you need to think about are there multiple income streams? Are there multiple income streams that are shared by different people? So it might be a rental property, which is shared between a wife and husband, or it might be shared with kind of relatives. And so there's some kind of thought process that needs to be go into there because you need to think about multiple software. And again, it might come back to what is the right software for a particular kind of type of client. We then get into transaction volumes. So in order to kind of make up those income streams, it might be that there is very few transactions, which make it super easy for you to be able to kind of manage. It might be that there's higher volumes. And I think when we start to talk about some of those higher volumes, I guess this is your opportunity to perhaps be a little kind of creative in terms of what are the processes you run to perhaps make it easier for you, but also then make sure that the client has exactly what they need to be able to do. And I guess flipping back to the earlier slide around the kind of the process, I guess I question or I think about what is it the client's going to, is the client going to get that real value that a 1 million, £2 million business is going to get by their records always being up to date. So I think that the conversation we have with some of our clients might change because where they see the value. The final bit I want to touch on this slide is behavior. And as I touched on earlier, a lot of the people that are impacted by MTD, they're already your kind of clients, so you know them. And I think it's that bit of how are they going to behave when you start asking them to supply information on a quarterly basis. What we don't want it to be is that kind of bedlam that we hear about in terms of kind of like tax returns, where you wait all year and then suddenly in the 11th hour you get all the information and it's old Muggins who's there at 11 o'clock at night on deadline day posting those kind of returns. So again, think about the behavior and think about how you reflect that in your pricing. The other bit is we hear this all the time, ideal customer persona. So think about this in terms of what does your ideal client look like? And again, it might be that you've got some that aren't the right fit. It might be that you can start to kind of specialize. And in that specialization, you then start to kind of attract new clients into your firm. So again, put some thinking into what is it that you want to do. And also think about some of the processes and how they're going to change. So a client you're dealing with for MTD, it might be very, very different to a small limited company where you're doing the bookkeeping and a VAT return for them. So what I'd say is be very, very clear about kind of building those processes. And I've got a bit of a challenge for you later on. The other thing is in terms of knowing your competition as well. We're starting to see some of the kind of the mainstream banks that are kind of coming out and saying that they're offering free software. It might be the right thing for some of your clients to kind of adopt. It might be that thing around where can you add value? So, or what is it that's going to keep some of your clients up? Is it the accuracy? Is it the peace of mind? Is it the fact that you can offer them some advice? Are some of these businesses growing? But the other thing to really think about here is there a way of you changing your operating kind of model? So how you behave now, you might be able to change. Is it around doing webinars? Is it about doing one-to-many? Is it about creating some help videos that you can then signpost your clients to? And I think this is a real opportunity for us to kind of spend a bit more time in that kind of customer experience bit. And I think often by writing things down and being very clear around your processes, that it makes it so much easier for kind of clients to follow. And if you can get them to behave in that kind of way that's consistent, all the better. And that really leads on to my kind of challenge for you. How do you turn your services into a product? So what do I mean by that? So for me, we are service-based businesses. And so what that tends to be is that when someone says, can you do it? Can you do this for me? The answer is kind of yes, and we start from scratch. What I'm challenging you to start thinking about is, can you turn some of your services into products? So how do you turn them into a product? It's about making them repeatable. It's about making them predictable. Um, and it's about almost that bit of how do you get the information before you kind of start the job? Is this around better communication? Is this about writing guides? Is this about sharing things in advance? Is it about coming right the way back to your letter engagement and making sure that those schedules of service are very clear? And is it almost like, how do we bring this to life? How do we talk our clients through? And so it's very, very clear about what you're going to do. There's no ambiguity. Everyone's clear. And I think this is also a bit of a challenge as business owners, as entrepreneurs. How are we the ones that define what the process looks like, but then actually we're going to step away because it means that we can then move on and solve another problem? So in terms of a bit of a recap then, um, know your clients. They're not all the same. Forget about turnover because there's more kind of important drivers that you need to consider. And then also then think about some of those software costs and think about for the different clients, have you got different software which would suit them better? So that's a bit of the kind of background. What I'm quite keen to do now is to kind of get in and get a little bit kind of practical and use a couple of tools that we've built, or and some of these are tools that I use in my own practice. So the first thing, and I can't take credit for this slide, I stole it. I tried to use Claude to create this image, an image for me, and it was absolutely awful. So I can't take credit for this. I've stolen this off someone else's website. So don't tell anyone. But for me, the key thing to take away from here is that MTD, it needs to work for you as much as it does for the client. So how would I approach this problem? So for me, there's 5 steps to it. Step 1 is about calculating your velocity. And for me, this is the kind of the term in terms of what's the minimum amount of that you need to make per hour. And I know that we don't want to charge based on time. I know that we want to price based on value. But for me, this is almost like a sense check that I keep on kind of coming back to in terms of, well, what do I need to kind of like recover per hour in terms of kind of getting to that profitable business? We've then got how do we kind of layer up? What do we want to include? It's about defining the scope. It's then about turning that into kind of pricing tiers. And we've got a nice little model that we can share with you around that. And then the final bit is about you communicating the value to your clients. So in terms of calculating your velocity, I'm going to go through a little spreadsheet in a moment. But for me, this is almost like a very, very simple step. You need to be paying yourself a commercial salary. Why is that important? Because at some point in the future, you may choose to step away from your business. And so you need to be able to replace yourself. And so I think a commercial salary is a great measure of that. And again, that is you getting paid for the work that you do in the business. The fact you have an asset in your business, that should be reflected in your profit. You've then got your overheads, and the challenge here is, I would say, what are the overheads of the business you want it to be? See it all too often that people start a business from in their bedroom and they've got very, very low overheads. At some point they grow and then they've got this real challenge of coming back in and almost like your overheads change. So you perhaps need to think about what is the business that you want to grow, and then we'll show you a real neat way of how do you calculate your velocity. And for me, this is an example of eating your own dog food, make it work for you, and then you can share it with some of your clients. Three layers. So this is really then in terms of like how do you want to start kind of categorizing some of the work that you do? What's in scope? What's not in scope? So you've got this element of the kind of the core baseline in terms of the stuff you've got to do. We're then going to overlay some of the behaviors on it. And then there's a third layer on top of it, which is almost that value add bit or kind of the additional support. And I think for me, it's also then there's a really nice exercise of some of these clients are starting. And so it's that whole bit of how do we give them the kind of the support or the encouragement, the confidence in order to grow. It's also that whole kind of bit as we go through it, it's being very, very clear around what some of the kind of the consequences are here. If a client doesn't give you the information in time, what are you going to do? And I think it's some of those that you need to almost decide now, because otherwise it's going to be a lot of hard work when it comes later on. So yeah, there's an element here of almost like what's in scope, what's out of scope. And it's really interesting because this is probably one of the biggest challenges that I had in my own business because we were effectively, we had a subscription, we were charging clients on a monthly basis. We almost kind of saw it as a bit of if the client said yes, we would do it. It's only when we started to be very kind of clear around what the scope was that we actually then started to kind of push back. And it's almost like, yes, we can do that for you, but there's an additional charge. And this is where we created a whole kind of concept of work orders. So what we did initially is we would price up the work, but then we would discount it to zero. And part of that was around our own lack of confidence. But then over time, what we've done is we've been kind of pushing back in terms of this isn't in scope. There's going to be an additional charge. And typically we're generating an extra 5, 10% plus each month just by being very, very clear around our scopes. So here's some kind of examples in terms of what some of those different tiers are. And we've created a really nice kind of calculator. I can't take the credit for this. This has been Simon's kind of creative work. It's pretty cool. And for me, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to kind of play around, make the mistakes in a spreadsheet rather than making those mistakes in real life. And then the final bit is almost like how do you start to communicate the value? And again, it's not just the value. How do you start to kind of communicate the process? How do you start to make it very, very clear in terms of what you want your clients to do and what the timescales are? Um, but let's dive in and get our hands dirty. Okay. So I'll start off by saying, so we've got some really nice articles on our kind of website in kind of the resources section, blogs, and this is one that I wrote back in September about how to price your services. And so what I've done is I've tried to kind of bring this to life with a bit of a spreadsheet. And this is the whole kind of concept of trying to work out what your velocity is. And so that's almost this figure down here in the bottom right. So what we start off with is almost like how many hours are available to us, or how many hours are available to kind of one FTE. And I think this for me is the bit where it comes back to this is your business, and so make it work for you. I know there are a number of people that want to do term time only, and so again, this might be where you can kind of literally go through and customize this to say, right, okay, I'm only working term time only, which is 39 weeks. So use this really for your own kind of business. So what I've done is I've said there's 52 weeks in the year. I've said there's 5 days in a week. So that gets us to 260. And then what I've done here is I've reduced that figure because there's going to be some days which aren't included. So I've taken 8 bank holidays. I've taken 22 days holiday. And you might want to include more because the reality is you're perhaps spending more time out for training, you go into trade shows. There's all of that great stuff that you might want to almost kind of factor in to there. And then what I've said is there's 7 hours in a working day. So that gets us to this 1610. So the next thing then is we've got the people on our team. So some of you might recognize, yeah, Donna's got it. It's Rainbow. So this is one of my favorite programs from back in the day. And I felt as though it needed to get flagged. I should have stopped at this point and we could have watched an episode, but we'll save that for another day. So what I've done here is I've started off by saying, so Zippy's in charge of it. And again, this might be where you reflect it from a pod perspective. And so what I've done is I've taken 45,000 as a basic salary, and I've added 15% to cover things like pension, national insurance, etc. We're then applying an efficiency figure to it. And I did some research here, and there's lots of talk about the efficiency of an average worker is 60%. And that's just absolutely kind of shocking there that you've got some people that is the level of productivity that we should expect. I then scaled it for full-time kind of equivalents. So here, for example, we've assumed that Bungle is an apprentice. And so we've kind of factored that in, that 20% of their time is going to be at college or on the job kind of training. And then we've got George, but you might want to add a few extra people in there for in the team. And so what this is then doing is it's effectively calculating what our productive hours would be. We're then summing this up, and we're getting to the overall people costs. We're adding overheads to get to a subtotal. And then what I'm saying there is not only do I want to pay salaries and overheads, I want to create a profit so that I can kind of grow and invest and also get value back. So again, it's a real kind of like 175,000 is what we should be aiming for. And the number of hours we've got there is 3,000. But this becomes quite kind of sensitive when you start to kind of play around with some of these figures. So actually, if you're running a business, it might be you're at 60% there. So it's one of those where make sure that this kind of is real and reflects what you want it to be. And yeah, happy to share this spreadsheet with anyone afterwards if it's useful. And again, overheads, this is where I think it's about. It's not only what your overheads are now, it's perhaps what your overheads are going to be in the near future. Because if that was suddenly then 5,000 and we had to kind of change it, then suddenly that's going to change things quite considerably. Actually, let me just, sorry. So yeah, overall, we're coming out at a target figure there of kind of 50,000. And again, you might want to make more profit. It's entirely up to you, but that kind of flows through. The next thing then is in terms of the jobs to be done. And this is, again, it's a tool that we kind of use quite a bit in my own firm of trying to be able to kind of shape what we're expecting to do. So think through what it is you're going to be doing. Are you going to be doing the bookkeeping for a client? Are you going to be doing it on a monthly basis? Are you going to be doing it on a kind of quarterly basis? How long do you think that task is going to take? And it's not just about doing the job, it's about all of the aspects around it. It's chasing a client for information, it's responding to them afterwards in terms of providing the kind of the information or what that next stage is. And again, be very, very kind of realistic. It's not about what you can do because you're super speedy. It's almost like the bit of what can average Joe do? So yeah, it's not about pricing it for that kind of experienced person. It's about being realistic. So we look at this and we're saying a quarterly submission is going to take us 90 minutes. Overall, across the year, that's going to be 360 minutes. And then the annual is going to be 90 minutes. But again, it's entirely up to you. It's what you want to kind of change. And then we've also got a software cost. I've also then included here the revenue streams, because suddenly if you've got 2 revenue streams, then potentially your quarterly submissions are going to double, and then also your software is going to double. And I think this is then the bit that it gets quite surprising in terms of if you start to think what your monthly fees could look like, it's quite different than that kind of standard figure. And then my other big recommendation is for you to strip out the software, because if that software price then increases, you don't want to be having to absorb that within your own kind of margin. So I'm a big fan of keeping everything separate. So there's a couple of tools to give you an idea as to what the velocity is. And there's also then a tool here in terms of starting to kind of scope out what you think the cost is. So what we've done is we've created a bit of a calculator for you. And again, we'll kind of share this with you. But down below here, we've then got this kind of model that you can start to play around with. So what have we got in this instance? We've got a target rate of £50 per hour. Again, you can kind of change that to what you think is kind of realistic. We've got the software costs. So we've broken that out separately. And then we've also given you an idea as to, you can start to kind of plumb in how many clients this impacts for you. And as I say, you probably know who those kind of clients are. And then coming back to a bit of packaging in terms of what are the different kind of offerings that you're going to have for each of those. So again, you can kind of play around with some of these, and you'll see that it will kind of tweak them as we go. Put that back to 50%. And then what we've got down here is we've got what's the time per client. So using the velocity and scope piece, you can use this almost as an element here of how long do you think the various tasks are going to take. And again, you might want to kind of factor in here that you've got some of those messy clients to play around with. And what that would do then is that will kind of help you to work out what your costs are going to be. The next bit then is finally to kind of put in what your costs are going to be per hour, and then per offering. And what this will do then is this will almost let them work out what the effective rate is. And if I just tweak this up to £75, you'll then see that you've got this kind of section in the middle, which is kind of like marginal. So I love trying to kind of model things and break things in a spreadsheet, because I think it's always way, way better in terms of being able to do that in a spreadsheet than trying to do it in real life and make some mistakes. So we will share all of this with you afterwards, and yeah, have a play, and appreciate your kind of feedback in terms of kind of some of the learning here, because we're all in this together. So that's a kind of a quick run through in terms of some of the kind of practical things that we can share with you to help you get in your mind how to price better. Again, keep looking at the website, because we've got hopefully some nice articles there, and I'm quite passionate about sharing my kind of some thoughts. But I'd love to know if there's subjects that are kind of close to your mind and you want an opinion on, then let me know, because I'd love to write a little bit more and share my thoughts on things. So in terms of what we can do to help, so within Socket Engage, we are going to roll out a number of schedules of service to help you. I think there's also some things for you to think about here in terms of if you're going to help your clients with things like MTD registration. Have you thought about charging for it? If you thought about almost that kind of, if they're going to be doing the record keeping themselves, is this something you can advise them on? Is this something you can start to do as a kind of a collective? Also, who's making some of the decisions around the software? Because I think this is an area where you can all add some value. We then get into the more kind of obvious elements in terms of the preparation submission of the period end statements, and then also the final declaration. So that is coming. That's going to be in the app very, very soon. And then I think some of the things are almost like the add-ons that you could provide. So it might be you've got that core service, but then there are some kind of aspects in terms of where you can add value. And what I'd say is, don't use these as opportunities of giving things away. The other thing that we are adding, and this is a big kudos to Oliver, we are giving you the ability to be able to kind of choose templates to create a proposal. So what you'll be able to do is, in terms of creating that proposal, you'll be able to go in and then very, very quickly create a proposal with multiple options. And again, my own learning is I've been quite kind of cautious in terms of I'm not sure whether a client will kind of select that, or is it too expensive? This is a great way of you giving the client the options, and then they can make their own choices again. So literally, it will be a case of select your pricing templates, and then you can just literally tick which ones you want, and then they will be kind of pre-populated. So hopefully that will save you an awful lot of time. And if you're starting to create some of those on bulk, then this is a really neat way of being able to do that. So this is also then a big ask of from me to you in terms of we're really passionate around making your lives easier. And we want to know what it is that will make you go faster. A lot of the app of the kind of new features comes from that feedback from you. But what we're really kind of passionate about is hearing, well, what is it that would make your lives easier from an MTD perspective or in general? So we like to think that we are, as a business, we respond to what our users are kind of asking for. So as you go through this, if you feel that there are elements that are kind of missing from a software perspective, but also I'm happy to kind of put my hand up as a bit of a sounding board of what would I do in certain situations, and running webinars like this, then we'd love to know that, and then we can look at almost supporting you on the journey. So in terms of the rollout plan, Q1 is almost upon us. So it's very, very kind of close to that point whereby clients are going to start having to keep track of things. So I think over the next month or so, it's that element of being able to finalize your tiers, finalize how you're going to kind of price things, and kind of factor that into Socket if you're using Socket. And it's about getting those proposals out to the clients that are impacted. If you're new to Socket, we've got a bit of an offer in terms of helping you to get ready. So we appreciate there's a bit of time in terms of that kind of setup. And so we're offering kind of 50% off for 3 months. And then I think it's that bit of review and refine. So we're making lots and lots of assumptions here around what you're going to charge. You're making lots and lots of assumptions around the process and how long things are going to take. So I think that in the first year, as we go through the cycle, as we learn, what we need to be doing is almost like reviewing and refining how we manage things and making sure that it works for us. You're going to get objections from your clients. So for them, it's going to be more work. It's also going to be kind of cost more. So I think for me, it's about almost being prepared around those objections, but it's also about standing firm and making sure that this works for you. I know as an industry, we're getting really kind of challenged, and it always feels like hard work. So for me, use this as an opportunity at looking at those processes, looking at what you charge for things, and making your business work for you. In terms of resources, big thank you to Simon and Amy. They've put an awful lot of effort into pulling together a guide, the kind of the calculator that we've gone through today, the dev team in the background in terms of adding new features in, and Ian, who's curated all of the service schedules for us. So the guide, the calculator, will be with you tomorrow. We've added some elements to the pricing menu in Socket, and the service schedules are going to be in there very, very soon. And that's really where I'll kind of draw it to a close in terms of what I wanted to cover. But I guess it's then throwing it back out to you in terms of, are there any questions that people want to kind of raise? No, there's nothing. There's no questions coming in. Hopefully you've enjoyed today and it's given you some stuff to think about. And so Simon's asked about a question around letter of engagement templates. Simon, they are literally getting drafted as we speak. So we're hopeful that they're going to be in the app very, very soon. So yeah, watch this kind of space. And we will share them and we will let you know that they are kind of live, so you can add to those. And again, the way that all of the letters engagement and schedules of service are created, we've created them so that they are kind of like best in class. So Ian, who we work with, is kind of aware of the different kind of requirements, different institutes, and so we've written from a best in class perspective. Is it easy to import clients from different platforms? We've got a way of being able to import clients into sockets. If you're using Carbon or FYI, it's super easy. If not, you're able to import things from a CSV perspective. But I'd love to know what practice management tool you're using. And yeah, we're always keen to build out the integrations that we've got. Do you have an API? We have an API. We don't connect with Iris. So yeah, we've got an API which opens up an awful lot of kind of like opportunities, but yeah, we're not connecting with Iris yet. Any more questions for anyone? Amazing. Well, let's call it a day and give you 10 minutes to make a cup of tea. And thanks for your time. Take care. Bye.